Good morning and welcome to Higher Ground, an examination of some of the moral and ethical issues of the day. I'm your host, Carmen Fields. We all know the term cold cases, usually murder cases that remain unsolved for a long time. When we think of long ago civil rights trials, those in connection with the deaths of Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner often come to mind. But there are many, many others, thanks to a project spearheaded by Northeastern University School of Law. Some of the long ago, almost forgotten, not so famous civil rights criminal cases are getting fresh eyes. Take a look at a video segment from the film Trouble I've Seen. Then I'll introduce you to my special guests.
The Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Clinic operates like a law firm. Our cases are cold cases. We work to develop the cases and to obtain some measure of justice for those communities that were affected.
In April 1953, in Wilcox County, Alabama, Sheriff Lummy Jenkins and two deputies invaded a cafe operated by 63-year-old Della Mcduffie and her husband, William. The lawmen claimed they were playing music after midnight on the Sabbath. Although Della Mcduffie was paralyzed and in a wheelchair, Sheriff Jenkins beat her with a rubber hose, and within an hour, she was dead.
So he walked in and hit her, told her, "Get up, old lady, go to bed." So she told him she couldn't get up. So he hit her across her arm on her knees. Then he hit her in the head. And he shot down by her feet a couple of times. And that was it.
So I retrieved the FBI file related to the case from the National Archives. I received a citation for it. I saw a lot of affidavits with witness testimony, including people who were in the cafe that evening.
William Mcduffie gave a statement to the FBI.
I could see him striking at one person, then another with a hose-like weapon. I saw a number hit with the weapon in Sheriff Jenkins' hand.
But Dr. Robert E. Dixon's statement reads,
I can definitely state that the cause of death was not brought on by any injury to the head, such as a blow.
This case essentially was a cover-up, and it never went to court.
For 32 years, Wilcox County, which was largely black, was Sheriff Lummy Jenkins' personal empire. He gained notoriety for playing by his own rules, legal or not.
Lummy Jenkins was known for the way he enforced law here in Wilcox County. And he did it with an iron hand. They followed their own rules, not so much what the law said. It was tough on certain people, especially black folks.
Lummy was a good sheriff, but somebody else may have a different opinion.
The Mcduffie story is, in fact, it's a story of violence, it's a story of secrecy, it's a story of banishment. This repeated silencing is a large part of what we try to address in our project.
My guests to tell us more about the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project are Professor Rose Zoltek-Jick, who is Associate Director of the Research and Policy Initiative. She's taught at Northeastern Law School for over 20 years. And Tara Dunn, a Boulder, Colorado native who is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, and she's a second-year law student at Northeastern University School of Law. Welcome, ladies, both of you, to Higher Ground.
Thank you so much, Carmen, for having us.
Professor, I'll start with you. Of course, we were only able to use a short excerpt of the film. How was the Mcduffie case resolved, or has it been resolved?
Well, it's not been resolved in the sense that there's never been a criminal prosecution of the case. But what we've done at the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice is restore the story to our history and really give the story a voice and an audience that it really never had had. It was one of those untold stories, and we're making sure that it is told.
Mm-hmm. Well, I get the civil rights part in the title or name of the project, restorative justice. Explain a little more what is meant by that.
Well, we mean it really in two different senses. The first is actually to restore those stories that aren't known to history. We really think that that is a piece of the restorative justice that has to happen with these untold murders and these unknown stories. If they actually don't get restored, we really don't have a justice sense of what happened during that period in American history, and that would be, in fact, be an injustice. But we also do restorative justice in another more practical sense, in that gatherings like the one that you saw on the video, or other kind of family gatherings, or marking of gravestones, or changing death certificates to indicate that people were murdered and that it wasn't an accident. Things like that are also measures of restorative justice that we take pride in fostering.
Okay. Ms. Dunn, law student, what drew you to this project?
Well, I think it provided an opportunity for me to really understand the injustices that are happening today. And I mean, you can look back and you can say, well, you know, it was a lot worse back then, but to really understand where it originated from, all the way down to the micro level, the local level of police, to the macro level of governors, it's all a collective effort, and this clinic provides an opportunity to really understand that.
Well, tell us a little bit of what you're working on now. What's your project? Or is it one project or several?
I'm working on one particular case, Henry Pay Gilbert. He was a farmer back in 1947 in Troup County, Georgia, and he was the victim of essentially a custodial lynching. He was killed in jail, most likely a mob. So it was common back then for the sheriffs or whoever to just open the door and let a mob have at the prisoner instead of letting the law handle it. Mm-hmm. So I got an opportunity to go down to Georgia. He still has, Henry Gilbert, he still has living family members, his daughters, who actually never shared his story of what actually happened. So I got to meet the family members, great-grandkids who never knew the story of how their great-grandfather was killed. Mm-hmm.
What are the steps in the research? We know there may not be a trial, but on the other side, are you able to find any people that were involved in his death?
We're working on that side now. We really focused on finally finding living family members and what exactly happened while he was in jail. We've found contact information for potential people who were involved in his murder, but we've not reached out to them quite yet. Mm-hmm. We're kind of waiting on that. Mm-hmm. But
okay. Well, our conversation continues after the community calendar, which includes some volunteer opportunities that I hope will be of interest to you. Stay tuned. We're back with my guests who are affiliated with the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project at Northeastern University School of Law. Professor Zoltek-Jick, I neglected to ask you how you became involved with the project. I know you have a background in domestic violence and criminal law.
I've been teaching criminal law for over 20 years at Northeastern, as you mentioned. And I think it's really important for students to understand how miscarriages of justice can come about. They can come about not only through wrongful convictions, but also through the miscarriage of justice of people not being properly prosecuted, if you will, a wrongful acquittal. So when Margaret Burnham asked me to join the project, I was really thrilled, and it's really been the experience of a lifetime.
Now tell us a little more about how it works, how many students you have, the projects that are selected, just how does this whole thing work?
So the clinic started about 7 years ago, and it started with just one case. But now we're up to about between 25 to 30 cases a year. And our cases largely come to us from the black newspapers. There was a very thriving black press, of course, at the time, and they reported on the violence. But for the cases that like you mentioned, like Emmett Till or Scottsboro Boys, those are cases that have been lost to those newspaper archives. And really, we don't know the narrative stories of hundreds of murders that took place in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and that's our job, to try to bring those cases back into the history books.
Well, is it a requirement for every student in law school to work on the project, or? No,
we take about 12 students a year, and they apply, and they take many other courses, and this is one of the electives that they can take in their upper level.
And how many courses or how many cases did you select from, or in picking the one that you're working on?
Well, we're given cases. They select them for us, and then they give us a primary case, and then a couple of secondary cases. But my primary case ended up being so involved that I just focused on that one.
Now, is this for course credit or, okay.
Yeah, it's for course credit.
Okay. Yeah. It's a really demanding, they have to give us over 20 hours a week of their time. It's 6 credits. It's really a major commitment to the students, and they really respond to it with great passion.
It sounds similar to, the Innocence Project, some of the work that the NAACP Legal Defense Fund does. Is there a collaboration or shared work between some of these other established civil rights organizations?
Not really. I mean, we all share the same goal, but I think we're actually the opposite in some ways of the Innocence Project. They're really about wrongful convictions, and we're really about wrongful non-prosecutions. So that I think it's important to understand that we're all working towards a goal of justice, but there are many ways to get there.
Okay. We'll talk some more after this musical interlude with pianist Donnell Patterson. He's performing Everything Must Change.
Nothing stays the same. Everything must change. Nothing and no one stays the same. The young becomes the old, and mysteries do unfold. For that's the way of time. Nothing rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky, and the hummingbirds do fly. Winter turns to spring, and a wounded heart will mend, but never much too soon. Nothing and no one stays the same, for there are not many things in life you can be sure of, except rain comes from the clouds and sun lights up the sky. Rain comes from the clouds and sun lights up the sky, and music makes me cry.
We're back with Professor Rose Zoltek-Jick and Tara Dunn, both affiliated with Northeastern University School of Law's Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project. Ms. Dunn, I want to go back to you. Tell me a little bit about the challenges and the rewards of being involved with something like this.
Well, some of the challenges involves just trying to investigate these cases that happened so long ago, trying to reach people who were alive during that time, trying to recover documents. A lot of the different agencies and cities struggle with trying to keep up with their documents. So I think that was the hardest part, was the research and trying to locate people who are still alive.
Mm-hmm. And the rewards?
The rewards, well, besides the practical legal skills that you gain from the clinic, it was really contacting the family and personally seeing the impact that our work and our research has on these individuals. For example, one of the sons of the daughter of the man who was lynched sent me a text message and said, "Today is my 50th birthday, and I just want to thank you all. I never knew the real story of how my grandfather was killed, and you guys are angels for it." So that was pretty impactful.
Mm-hmm, yes, and giving the family that sense of peace. What lies ahead for your future as you look toward the third year and then finishing law school?
Right. Well, I definitely hope to be a civil rights lawyer and follow in the footsteps of many of the professors that I've had. And eventually, I'd like to get involved in policy and affect change from the legislative side.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Professor, we mentioned a connection to policy initiatives as well. Can you elaborate a bit on that for me?
So part of our restorative justice work is also to make sure that these cases get known on a grander scale in addition to our own website. So that we're working, for example, with the Alabama legislature to have them think about setting up a historical commission to really look into the cases that really arise during this period in their own jurisdiction. And we're trying to do work with other communities and with legislatures to really try to have this work and understood at a policy level.
And you mentioned some understanding, broader understanding of what is happening on the legal front today and now. What are the parallels or what are the connections?
Well, I think we believe that without really understanding the work that we're doing to understand the depth and breadth of violence in this earlier period in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, there really isn't a through line between then and now. And so the reason that we're doing the work focused on history but trying to bring it into today is precisely to make that connection so that really we can understand what's happening today as a through line between then and now.
Have you drawn any parallels with some of the cases, the more popular cases we see in the media today?
We do that really through our own work in terms of op-eds and other kinds of investigatory work and articles that we write. But for the students, it's very palpable. There's no clinic where they don't get it, where they don't really see today in yesterday's news and yesterday in today's news. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes these connections are explicit, and sometimes really we rely on the students' understanding of history to bring their own perspective on today.
And what's ahead for the project?
We have many cases yet to discover. There are as many cases as we've discovered. There are those that are yet to be known. And we're trying to do the 25 to 30 cases that we're able to do this every year and try to get to the bottom and to the end of this story.
Mm-hmm. Well, good luck with your work. Good luck with your and many success for your future as a young attorney. It was particularly haunting for me to hear the voice of Julian Bond as a narrator on that, with his loss being so fresh on our minds. But congratulations and keep on keeping on, as they say. I'm grateful for the sharing of this special story with our audience, and I wish them continued success. I will end with the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who reminds us you can never do a kindness too soon, for we never know how soon it will be too late. Have a blessed day, and see you next time on Higher Ground.
3, 2, 1.